For centuries, European cartographers hunted for a continent they had completely invented. They didn't base this search on expedition logs or rumors from local traders, but on an idea conjured entirely out of thin air. The architects of this theory were ancient Greek and Roman thinkers like Aristotle, Ptolemy, and Macrobius. Looking at the known map of their world, they noticed a heavy concentration of land packed into the northern hemisphere. This diagram shows their proposed solution. They assumed the physical globe would logically tip over under the sheer weight of Europe and Asia unless a massive southern landmass existed to act as a counterweight. The physics were entirely wrong, but that single, flawed deduction planted an expectation in the minds of geographers that would persist for over 1,000 years. By the time the Age of Discovery arrived, navigating the oceans was less about mapping the known world and more about hunting down this ghost continent. They even gave their hypothetical prize an official Latin name, Terra Australis Incognito. This map shows exactly how that obsession manifested. Cartographers drew immense speculative boundaries, filling the entire bottom half of the globe, boldly labeling the blank space Terra Australis Incognito. To the explorers charting these waters, this was not a legend. They treated the southern landmass as a guaranteed scientific reality that simply had not been documented yet. Entire fleets sailed into the Pacific, trying to validate an ancient mathematical error. By the 1600s, the focus of global shipping had narrowed to the bustling trade routes of the East Indies. Merchant ships moved spices and silks, navigating strictly for corporate profit rather than theoretical maps. Looking closely at this 17th century map of the Dutch trade networks, you can see how incredibly close their regular shipping lanes brought them to the unknown southern land. Notice the sliver labeled Nova Hollandia right in the bottom corner. Traditional accounts of global exploration suggest finding a new landmass required years of calculated navigation. The actual breakthrough happened when 3 Dutch sailors simply got lost and accidentally blundered straight into the western coastline. The most highly sought-after theoretical prize of the Age of Discovery, a continent debated by the greatest minds of antiquity, was found entirely by mistake. European mapmakers immediately declared victory. As far as they were concerned, this accidental landing confirmed the ancient Greek prophecy of a southern counterweight. Australia was quickly categorized as the final piece of the New World available to Europe. There was land further south, but solid ice and desolate mountains rendered it completely useless for colonial expansion. Practically nobody cared about Antarctica. With the map deemed complete, the empires of Europe prepared to expand. Their plans relied on a deeply dangerous assumption that this vast territory was empty and freely available for the taking. There was a fatal flaw in the European narrative. The continent acting as their cartographic counterweight was anything but empty. You cannot actually discover a place that is already home to deeply established, thriving societies. This visualization shows the scale of the human presence at the time. Modern estimates indicate there were between 300,000 and 700,000 First Nations people living across the continent long before the first Dutch ship arrived. The Dutch arrival in the 1600s constitutes an uninvited entry into a densely populated sovereign territory. As more European ships arrived, they began to make their early contacts with these indigenous tribes. Those initial interactions were highly unpredictable. The historical record shows that these encounters were as often peaceful as they were violently hostile. On one side of the beach stood cultures with tens of thousands of years of deep, stable antiquity. On the other stood explorers driven by imperial ambition and old maps. Australia's entry onto the global stage represents the sudden, volatile collision of 2 separate ancient worlds.